We'd like to first of all thank our panelists for joining us today. It's a privilege and we do not take it for granted. My name is Michelle Oyemade and I will be moderating this session today. But before we go on, I'd like to quickly just read a brief bio of our panelists today so that we all know who they are, what they do, and why we chose them for this session. Right. So first, Carol Omo. I hope I got that correct. Please correct my pronunciation if it's wrong.
You got it right. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Okay, so she's the founder of Sanitary Aid Initiative and Foundation for the Eradication of Child Labor. She's a project manager that has worked with various organizations in Nigeria and the United Kingdom. Carol almost started a project to support orphanages in Lagos with books through the Little Libraries Everywhere project. She has given out over 10,000 books with the support of Meadowhall Foundation. Carol is passionate about social change and commits to working with our local community to find solutions to everyday issues. Thank you, Carol, for joining us. It's a privilege. We thank you so much. Next, we have Tayo. He's a qualified social worker working in London in the Children and Families Intervention and Support team. He has a law background, having previously qualified as a lawyer both in the UK and Nigeria, and has experience working with domestic violence victims and young persons, but his passion lies in improving the outcomes for young people and providing them the platform to access opportunities he believes should be afforded to all children globally. Thank you so much, Tayo, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we have Janet Agba. She's the proprietress and founder of Leap for Joy School in Yaba. She has a first degree in communication arts and linguistics, postgraduate diploma from the University of Lagos, and a master's in education psychology. She's a recipient of the You Win Project grant in 2013, and she co-runs the Mother's Nest organization aimed at helping orphans access scholarships. She believes that every child has the right to good education, and it is our collective responsibility to facilitate and guarantee their access to a qualitative education. Thank you, Janet, for joining us today. Thank you so much. And finally, we have...
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Bidemi Oyedepo. She's a prolific teacher, trainer, and leader in education and pastoral care. She graduated with a BSc honors degree as the best female graduating student from the Department of Botany and Microbiology, University of Ibadan in 1995. She has had a distinction in her executive diploma from Agba University, with further postgraduate studies in education from Nottingham University in the UK. She is responsible, very flexible, and adaptable to change while maintaining her integrity of character. For 10 years, she has been passionate about excellence, and she has been involved in school improvement, focusing on quality assurance and control QAC. She has been exposed to processes that have contributed to better service delivery and customer satisfaction. She's a notable member of Meadowhall Senior Leadership Team and the Director of Quality Assurance and Control QAC Department for Meadowhall Group. You're welcome, Bidemi. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great, thank you all. And we'd like to thank our audience for joining us. We see we have about 29 participants now. Oh, and there's so much more. Oh, okay. We're admitting all of you now, so you can join us. Great, great. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So we're talking about curbing bullying in schools. Curbing bullying in schools. And it's a very interesting topic because, I mean, we have seen all that has been going on in recent time, especially in schools. And we as Meadowhall Foundation think that it's something that we should create more awareness about and discuss. And that's why we have these people, this caliber of people in our panel today. They are very experienced, especially with children. And we thought that it would be a good opportunity to to hear their own perspectives on bullying and anti-bullying and what the solutions can be, right? Solutions that we can all adopt as school leaders, as teachers, and as parents as well. So first, we'll be looking at defining bullying and what are the different ways of being bullied. So this question is for all the members of the panel because there are many definitions. Of course, we have what dictionary says, but we also know that you have your own perspectives based on your experiences, based on what you've seen and what you know. So we'd like to hear from all of you what bullying is from your own perspective. Carol, we'd like to start with you.
I had a feeling you were going to start with me. This always happens to me. I don't know why.
Oh, yes.
But why?
Because
I was looking forward. I mean, after you read everybody's bio, I was just looking forward to hearing from everybody. Just seems like so experienced, and I'm like, these people are childhood and child education experts. Let me listen to them first. And now you've put me first, but I'll just go. So, I think I'll be a little descriptive because personally, growing up, I thought that bullying was just basically physical aggression in a situation where there's power imbalance. But as I've gotten older, I've come to see that it is not only physical aggression, it's aggression that has kind of a goal. And the goal is mostly to ostracize somebody, to manipulate them, to make them feel less than they are, with the aim of just assuring that that power imbalance is reinforced. So that's my definition of bullying, just aggressive, goal-oriented or goal-directed behavior that is aimed at someone with power imbalance to just ensure that you continue to enforce that power imbalance and make sure that they know their place and they also accept your own place over them. Thank you.
That's control. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, Tayo, over to you. You're next.
Yeah, so I think to piggyback off what Kara said, I think most of us have a general understanding of what bullying is. And I think my only sort of additional contribution to that would be it being almost like a repetitive cycle by a perpetrator where he or she tries to exert dominance over someone that they deem inferior for different types of reasons. And like Kara said, it's not necessarily just physical, it can also be emotional. Very often it's a mixture of emotional, verbal, and physical. And yeah, it happens over a sustained period of time in almost like a conveyor belt, repetitive cycle. So yeah, that would be my my understanding and personal definition of bullying.
Great, thank you, Tayo. Thank you so much. Janet, please, how would you define bullying?
Hello.
The term bullying.
Hello.
Hi, Janet, we can hear you. Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay. I like to borrow Ben Whitney's definition of bullying because it covers quite a lot. And I think basically she was trying to say that bullying involves actual and threatened violence, extortion of money or property, coercing a child into doing something they don't want to do for someone, ignoring or shutting down a child from friendship groups, teasing and humiliating a child who is different, name calling and making offensive remarks, offensive texting and spreading insulting mails, and spreading untrue rumors and gossip about anyone. I'm a bit emotional about this topic because should I say I'm one who was affected by bullying, and I know the effect that it had on me, and I know the trouble I've gone through to ensure that my children don't experience. I am one who has the opinion that we should prepare children for bullying. It will always be there. You understand? So my point here is that I am more interested in ensuring that the bullying spirit is killed. You don't allow it grow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you so much. Yes, we can hear you. We heard you. The last thing you said, we are interested in preventing bullying, that we're ensuring that we do not allow it grow. So we heard you. Thank you so much for that perspective. Bidemi, please, what is bullying?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I'm sorry I was muted when you introduced me the other time. So thank you, Michelle, for having me. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to define bullying as a behavior. It's a behavior that is very, very intentional. So the bully is aware of what he or she is doing. It's a behavior that is targeted at an individual and it has an outcome. So the outcome is ensuring that somebody is hurt, somebody is, affected negatively. And sometimes it can be aggressive and sometimes it can actually be subtle. Okay, but one key thing we must know about bullying, especially when we're trying to define bullying with children, is that it must be repetitive, because sometimes you find children, they're in an argument, you find children, they're fighting, and because before you know it, somebody is saying, I'm being bullied. No. For it to be a bullying, then it must be repeated. There must be a show of power, like someone said initially. You're trying to use your power to affect someone in a negative way, to harm somebody. And at the end of the day, there is this outcome that some other individual has been affected in a negative way. So that's what bullying is.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to quickly pick from what you said. So you said that the bullies are usually aware. So I'm looking at a 2 or 3-year-old child. Is there a possibility that a 2 or 3-year-old child is a bully? Because in my mind, I'm saying, would they know that this is what they're doing and what they're doing is wrong, or they're affecting the other person negatively? Is there an awareness that comes with a certain age? So can we then say that if you're below 5, you're probably not aware that you're a bully, even though you are? Or are we saying that children who are really, really young cannot be called bullies?
Do you want me to go, Michelle?
Yes, please do them. Yes,
okay,
first. Yes,
so,
I'd like you to go first. Yes.
For younger children, they might not be able to define their action. That, okay, what I'm doing is actually called bullying, but they are aware of what they are doing because they know what they want to get. So children from 2, from 3, they become aware. They become a bit aware of themselves. And that is why sometimes you see a 2-year-old, he wants something, and he's not going to give up until he gets it. Even when you think that 2-year-old has forgotten, then he will come again and ask and insist. And some of them, they feel that, for example, if they cry, if they will, you're going to give them what they want. And so it's an intended behavior because they know that it is a way of getting what I want. So a 2-year-old, 3-year-old might not be able to define their action as bullying, but they know what they are doing. They know who their target is, and they know what they want to get. So, it's possible for a 2-year-old to be a bully. Absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just add to what you said?
Funny, I was about to just call you now because I saw you nodding. You were like,
yes.
Because
yeah, thank you so much. She mentioned something, and when she mentioned it, I had like light bulbs, and she was just saying how it has to be repeated behavior. Something that I wanted to add is that it might not be repeated behavior to that child, but the person could also be the one that is showing a repeated behavior. So if 2 kids are fighting today, for example, and one of them feels that they're being bullied, they might not necessarily be being bullied, but the pattern of bullying behavior might be from the bully themselves. So that behavior might not be one recipient. It might be that they bully everybody. And they've bullied this one child one time, and they bullied this one child. And then when it comes to younger children, I think they might also not know that it's bullying, but it is, even bullies that are older might not know that what they're doing is bullying. It's the effects that they want. So that effect is what makes the action to be, would I say, bullying, because some people believe that rules don't apply to them. You can already see from sometimes when children are younger, and they might not have ill intentions, but when children are younger, that they know that it's bedtime for everybody, but it's not bedtime for me because, rules don't apply to me. So that behavior is something that develops into where they go to school and everybody's meant to, be polite to everybody. And they're like, this being polite does not apply to me because I am above the law. I am, would I say entitled, or would I say better than everybody else in some way? So they might not be able to define their actions. We might not be able to accuse them because, they're children, and sometimes their behavior is just what has been allowed them from where they're coming from. So you might not be able to point at them and say, this is a trained, hardened bully. But those actions, that expectation, that entitlement, that superiority above everybody else, or them being the person that gets to allow who sits on this table, who does these things, where they assume the position above, position that has not been allocated to them, is that behavior. So we might want to say, we want to look, okay, have these two children, the pattern we're looking at is, have these children fought before? Has this person bullied this person before? It might not be so. It might be that they bully everybody one time. So the repeated behavior is from them, but not to the same victim.
Great. Thank you so much, Janet, for that. Thank you so much. Okay, so next question. Janet.
Oh, that wasn't Janet, but I wanted to say something just on this particular point.
Okay.
I don't completely agree with saying that the bully knows what he is doing. The reason is that the Bible says, train up a child in the way the child should go. Just going to give you two short stories. When I was in school, there was a boy who locked up a child in a locker, and the child died. We all left, and they didn't know that the child was in the locker, and the boy died. And tracing back to some of these people, you find out that they grow up in homes where the parents don't know that they are actually bullying them. So why am I saying this? I've had a scenario of a child that slaps a 9 to 10-year-old child who slaps a 40-year-old bookkeeper. Why? Because the mother does it in front of her. The mother talks to the driver in front of her. The driver kneels down in front of the mother, in front of the children. What happened to the days when our drivers were called uncles and our housekeepers were called aunties, and you didn't even have the guts to send your housekeeper? So this is what I see. Parents are being careless with the way they are training their children. They are training children to believe that there are certain things they do that is normal and it is right. And these children accept this thing and go on to practice it. Now, let me just share a short story here. This guy I'm talking about, after having killed this boy, years later, I still saw him while I was still working with Sheraton Hotel Weekend. And immediately I saw him, guess what came to my mind? This guy is a killer. Now, you don't train children. You just leave these children and let them do what they do. Don't forget, your child learns by what he sees. I do not think my child has a right to tell my driver I am even ready to go, or tell my...
Janet, you're muted.
Sorry about that. That's because she's about to go to school. Do you understand? You must teach these children to respect adults, respect people. Don't let them believe that there are certain people you should put down. When you train your children like that, they are not likely to become bullies. You understand where I'm coming from? So a lot depends on the homes where these children are coming from. Where they get away with a lot of things, their parents get away with a lot of things. Treat a housekeeper anyhow. I've had a parent, I own a school, that use iron to burn a housekeeper. What are you teaching your child in front of your child? I've had a child, when she's going into the school bus, there's a housekeeper carrying her bag, there's a housekeeper carrying her water bottle. What are you raising? You understand? Let's go back to...
Okay, Janet. Okay, Janet, thank you so much. In fact, I think that what you have done is to sort of answer the next question, which is, why do children bully their peers? And I hear what you say, and I hear that, and I'm hearing that, these children learn it from home. They see whatever it is that they see their parents do, or maybe elder siblings, and so this is why they bully their own peers in school, because they just feel that this is normal. But I'd like to ask Tayo. Tayo, you're into families and children, because we looked you up. I looked you up. So Janet here is saying that is strictly from the home, right?
I absolutely agree on one hand with what Janet said. I think bullying is learned behavior. I think children are not born the same way children are not born racist. They're not born to be bullies, and they're shaped by their environment. So this definitely can happen in the home via watching their parents do it, or being treated a type of way by their siblings or anyone else in the family. So if you see something often and regularly, it becomes part of your everyday pattern. But I would also say that aside, that's not necessarily the only reason people bully. I think social anxiety and an inability to make meaningful relationships with their peers can often resort to children doing things where they have to gain control over the relationships because they can't naturally form them themselves. I see a lot of children that I've worked with that have social anxiety, and because they can't build relationships with people naturally, their coping mechanism is to either do it in a way whereby they feel in control, or they act out because they are not in control. So yeah, no, I think there isn't a blanket answer as to why children bully. There's multiple reasons. I do definitely agree with Janet on the one hand, but I think there are other reasons which are sort of more focused on the child as opposed to necessarily just the home as well. And I think their environment and things that are internal to them are also reasons as to why they bully their peers.
Okay, thank you, Tayo. Thank you, Tayo, for that. Does anyone else have something else to say concerning this? Seeing as we are learning now that it's a trained behavior. For example, nobody's born anything. Technically, you're either born a boy or a girl, right? You're not born racist or tribalistic. It's eventually becomes what you see or what you learn or what the environment that you're in, what you're learning from that environment.
Yeah, and so I wanted to also add, to what's been said by Janet and Tayo. So it's learned behavior, yes, but it's not always from the home. It's also from school, from friends, and people react to things differently. So even when you use the situation of a home, sometimes if people grow up in a violent home, then they have the opposite reaction to it. They go out there and they become really timid, and they can now be seen as easy targets for bullying. So I don't think it's one way. Obviously, it's important to enforce boundaries, to teach children respect and all of that. But it's also because you're trying to avoid bullying doesn't mean that you shouldn't teach children confidence to be able to speak for themselves, to be able to be heard. Because again, if children are like raised to be really timid, when they're getting bullied, it will be hard. It will not be easy to realize that that's what's happening to them because they've always, just been quiet and they might not be able to speak up. So again, it's just creating that enabling environment where people recognize what is right and what is wrong, or what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. But I do believe that school, home, everywhere, that every social interaction that we have when we're growing up has some effect on us. It makes us pick certain behaviors, makes us totally reject certain behaviors. But again, another thing is, if there are rules, there are rules. So the rules at home should kind of like be like the rules in school as well. So if behavior in school is not acceptable, it should be a standard rule that applies to everyone, and that people can come, and even when they don't know that they're bullies, it's speaking out. So it's not just to label somebody a bully. It's not just to label a child, especially a bully. It's to pick out the behavior that the child is exhibiting and then to correct that behavior. And also in those things, also prioritizing the person who's at the receiving end. So it's not one thing to just, blanket it, anything that is speaking loud, anything that is anything that is this, anything that, all of that's just bullying, and you are condemned to, the abyss. Is picking those behaviors that can eventually lead to somebody being a bully, correcting those behaviors that are, would I say, overly aggressive, or all those, cliquey behaviors where people ostracize others, all those things that don't necessarily or immediately stand out as bullying, but can be recognized as a pattern. If a particular child is always being left out, if you hear, children like on social media now coming back and saying, someone is laughing at my pictures online, doing all of these things are things that if you look at the pattern, you can see how it is. And people can come from totally respectable homes, things that they don't do at home, and then when they come to school, they feel that that's where they can behave like that. So again, it's not just one way. If not, we'll keep looking back to the home and saying this is totally where a bad child or a badly behaved child cannot come from a good, respectable home. And that just makes a divide that is just not, it's not reflective of reality.
Hi, Michelle,
Michelle, you're muted.
somebody was just saying that it's on my camera, so you cannot see my fine face, my very pretty Saturday face. Don't mind me. Okay, so thank you. So we're saying that it's not just the home, it can be in the environment, it can be the school, it can be learned from their peers, it can even possibly be from a religious house, mosque, church, wherever, right? It can be learned anywhere. So how do we...
Can I add that, it can also come as a result of needs not met. So for example, a child needs attention, is not getting the attention. So a child might feel that the only way to do that is to get people, to pay attention. So you become aggressive, you do some other things, and then that way you're getting the attention, you're satisfied. It might also be sometimes there's need for, you want to use your power. Sometimes because we give rules, we give sanctions, and sometimes children feel that, I need to be able to exhibit my will, my power all the time. I've been controlled in a certain way. So they look for a safe space, a space where maybe mom is not there, dad is not there, and this is the time for me to be able to execute my power on another person. So sometimes it might be, that ability to be able to, use your power freely without being caught by anyone. Or sometimes you want to revenge, you feel that, someone has done something for me and I was not able to retaliate because the person is bigger in size, so I'm not able to do this to this person. So you look for someone smaller that they can do the same to. So it can be for different reasons, like we've said, but sometimes it might also be because the children have different needs, the need for attention, the need for revenge, or sometimes you feel you are not enough. You lack self-confidence. And so because of that, you're looking for things to just make you feel good. And because of that, you begin to act out. So sometimes it could just be based on all of those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So how do we now then define tantrum throwing? So I have a child, for example, who always wants something. And then when you don't get it, he begins to throw tantrums, or she begins to throw tantrums and just starts punching and pushing. So is that a pattern to look out for? So because my next question is, what are the patterns to look out for, especially for those who are in school? What are the patterns to look out for when it comes to bullying? So would I, for example, look at a tantrum throwing child as one who there's a tendency that you can become a bully? For example, Janet, let's go to Janet, who owns a school leader, and who has probably seen who sees this all on a daily basis. Well, I hope not. Janet, what are the patterns we should look out for?
Okay, this is a difficult one because individuals respond differently to issues, and I want to point out that most times I can handle a child's tantrums if I've known the child over time. So I sort of understand the kind of child the child is, where he's coming from, and I take time out to study the homes where my children come from. It helps me deal with them. I mean, not that I expose their homes, but it helps me deal with them. If I'm dealing with a single parent, a child who has a single parent, I know what to do. If I'm dealing with a child who is from a hostile home, I know what to do. So what I would advise is that you study your children, you understand them, you know what makes them tick. There are some of them that I will take aside into my office and dialogue with them, you understand. There are some that I come up with what we call negative reinforcement, not beating, not bullying or anything, but you won't go out to break. Why? I know this child likes play, you understand. So that's a soft spot for him. And I take him or her out and say, you won't go out to play. But at the end of it, one thing is important that I have learned. I get my children to talk to me. I've built a relationship over time that they walk into my office anytime. Mrs. Agba this, Mrs. Agba that, Mrs. Agba, my teacher beats me, Mrs. Agba, we sit down, we talk about it. So I think most importantly, it's better that you study your children.
Study your children. Tayo, I'll keep saying your experience with children, right? Because of what you currently do. Are there patterns? And I understand Janet is saying that that you can't, it's not one size fits all. But I also know that there are certain patterns that as a teacher, right, I can look out for. Yes, I understand that children are different. So you can have 10 children in class, 10 different attitudes, 10 different reactions to certain things. But I also think that there are patterns that as a teacher, I can look out for. I might not totally know everything, but I know that if I see this in a child, if I see, so what patterns as teachers, as parents, should we look out for?
I
from your own perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, there are loads. And I think I've sort of singled out maybe 3 for parents and teachers. And I think one of them being low self-esteem. I think obviously the beauty standards that society has imposed on us is a major stress for adults and children alike. And I think in the social media age, it's even worse. So I think children almost in turn begin to hate themselves, and they turn that hate onto other people. So, but it's really difficult to spot an individual with low self-esteem. So it's almost like Janet said about knowing your students and knowing the people that you work with. So that's something that you can only spot if you pay attention to the children that you work with. Again, the second one being children who come from like a difficult home life. But again, that's something that you'd have to know your child. Some children come from homes that are where, you know, they may have everything, but they're still neglected. And that's really difficult to spot, or coming from a home with like lots of arguments and hostility. And in turn, that sort of leads them to want to continue that sort of pattern of behavior. So it's about sort of trying to understand what the child's home life looks like as well. And I think one of the other ones is like children succumb into peer pressure to maintain their relationships. So almost like looking at children in a friendship group and seeing which sort of child sort of doesn't almost fit into that friendship group, and they try to sort of feel the need to show off so that they would fit into the friendship group. So trying to sort of notice that as well. And I think obviously being a social worker, those are things that I try to pick up on when I work with young people. So yeah, I would say, I mean, yeah, but there are loads of things, and it's really difficult to spot, unfortunately, the signs before they become actual actions.
Right. So I mean, from what you're saying, it means that first we have established the fact that nobody is born a bully. We've also established the fact that before a child becomes a bully, we can control. We can ensure that as teachers, as parents, we can curb certain attitudes, certain patterns, but we need to pay attention. I'm just worried, you know, I'm just worried, paying attention. My next question says that you have to be like you have to have a certain background. Maybe you're a lanky child, you're nerdy looking, you're financially unstable, you don't have rich parents. So can we? And so I'm thinking about all this. I have 20 children in my class. They're nerds. There's some parents that don't have money. Some parents are rich. How easy is it to pay attention? And I'm not a teacher, so I'm sure that I'm going to get a lot of enlightenment today. How easy is it to pay attention to every child? And I think it's even more difficult because there are younger children in class. So if you teach, you know, children who are below 3 or below 4, 20 of them, for example, because not everybody teaches in a class where they're probably 5 or 10, some 20, some 30. Imagine public schools in Nigeria, for example. How easy is it to pay attention to every child so that you can notice these signs or these patterns? Let me ask, so Tayo, think about that. But let me ask Bidemi, what do you think? Seeing as you work in a school environment.
Respond to that. Yeah, so that's why, you know, as a teacher, the way you receive your children when they are coming into your class is very, very important. And also it's important for school to work as a community. What do I mean? So I'm in a particular year group and children are coming into my class. So if a school is a community, it means that some information can get to me as a teacher, you know, from maybe the old class. So already before the children come to my class, I have an idea. I have an idea of behavior. I have an idea of, their performance in terms of grades. I have an idea of how to reach them how to reach their parents. So basic information have been given to me before the children come to my class. And then when they come to my class, the first 1 week is very important to me because that is the week I'm beginning to connect to them. So I've been in the class for 20 years. And I can tell you that one good thing that's worked well for me is connection to children. You must see every child as an individual, even though they are in your class. But there's a way, by the time you give opportunity for them to settle into your class, you call them by their name. Sometimes it's quite difficult. For me, sometimes when children are coming in, I write down their name. I try to match that name to the face. I must know their name. It's not an accident. I'm not calling you a child. No, you are a child. You have a name, you have a behavior, and I must know you. So I feel that teachers taking time to know their children, to connect to them, would really go a long way. So I know my children. And you said, what should we look out for? You must look out for something that is off. The children are different. But because I know you, when you're beginning to do something that is unlike you, that's a signal for me that something is wrong. And if I do have a good connection with you, if I'm able to question you, I should be able to find out what exactly is wrong, and I know what to do to address that. So I think for me, connection is big. It's a big one, and looking out for patterns and behaviors that are not regular. They're irregular. So you have a child in your class that on a good day would score a 20 out of 20, and she's done that consistently. And then all of a sudden she starts getting 10, she starts getting 5. Oh, that's a red flag. Something is off. Or you have a child that on a good day, is just the lucky go fellow, excited, participates in class, and all of a sudden the child withdraws. That's a signal to look out for. So I think generally we look out for behavior, and then connection to the children would let you know and be aware of who they are. And once something is off, you're able to trace it, you know what to do, and you're able to, support the children.
Thank you so much, Bidemi. Thank you so much. I'd just like to quickly say that if you have questions, you can put it in the chat. If you have comments, you can also put it in the chat room. We'll be looking at them, and as much as we can, we hope that we can address the issues that will be raised. Bullying is a conversation that we have to keep talking about. We can't answer all the questions today, but as much as we can, we will ensure that we touch on, the very important things. I know everything is important, but the absolutely important ones, we will touch on them. Okay, but let me quickly ask this. Carol, someone says, is there a connection between tantrum and bullying? I remember I was asking that question before. So the person is saying, is there a connection? What should we look out for? And the person says, Folake, by the way, says, aside the child seeking for attention, we know that every time when a child throws tantrum, he or she always wants something. But is there a connection?
So I won't say, I just think that we use that as an example, but I wouldn't say that a child that throws tantrums is going to become a bully. No.
Fantastic.
When children are younger, they can't communicate as we do. So sometimes they're basically just communicating. So I will not, ascribe that behavior to bullying. It's just, as children become more aware, they begin to know that, okay, maybe if I do this repeatedly, I will get this result. It also doesn't make them bullies. And that's kind of why I said that bullying is like, it's one thing to call something bullying, is another thing to tie patterns of behaviors that could be called bullying. So yes, I won't say that a child that throws tantrums. No, it's just, communication. When children are, I would say, now I have a 4-year-old. So now at 4, I'm like, what you're doing at 4. But like before now, I knew that she did not know what she was doing, but it's sometimes it's just communication. It's how you can correct that behavior also. You can begin to show that I will listen to you even if you don't throw tantrum. Something I've learned now is that sometimes I'm the reason why this tantrum has been thrown, because if a child says, I'm hungry, and then I'm like, yeah, wait, 15 minutes goes by and the child says, I'm hungry, of course they're going to throw a tantrum, because they've communicated their needs. And when they communicate, if they could make their food, they'll probably go and make their food. They've communicated their needs.
Absolutely.
So you're the one that you have also pushed, that child to react the way, and then they can't hit you, they can't. So that's their own, way of communication. So no, I won't. Please, let's not So I think we're just using that as an example of ways in which people can also learn that I can keep poking, I can keep poking, I can keep poking. And, you know, if that behavior kind of continues, and if they begin to understand that this is the way to get attention, this is the way to stand out, you know, and also, you know, sometimes children, as they grow older, they do, and we all do that, like in social settings where patterns of behavior change. Sometimes a child that is quiet when being bullied can become a noisy child, because now they want to signal to others that, okay, I'm not one to be messed with. Before, they liked their peace, they were quiet in the class, and maybe because of that, they're becoming like victims of bullying, and then they start being bullied, and they're like, yeah, okay, I need to, when we're in class, I need to be disruptive. I need to do something to show that I'm not, you know, taking this lightly, or that I'm not one to be bullied. So I think all of those changes in behavior, like, so that's why, like everyone has said, it's not one size fits all, and it's why it's important in school for there to be people that listen. So when you have, like, you mentioned something about having a large class, like when you have a large class, I mean, you're not a computer, you can't know 80 students and their behaviors and all of their needs and everything. But also, if you're someone that listens, there are a lot of things that happen that you would hear in the grapevine. You know, you would hear a child might not even be the victim, might not be the bully, might say something to you because they're comfortable communicating with you. And I know we haven't spoken about this, but it's another reason why I just don't think that it's good to introduce physical violence at home or in school, because it's kind of for me, it's a bloodline. Because how do I explain
Janet, don't get there yet.
It's not something I'm going to argue about. I will not argue about it. I'm just saying my opinion.
I know.
No.
I mean, let's not get to that point yet. We're getting there.
Okay.
Oh, yes,
I just wanted to say that it's not. No, I just wanted to say that that's something else that I feel that, you know, it's a bloodline in communicating that to children, that one person can do this and one person can't do this, and this is acceptable in this situation, this is not acceptable, because children are they're like sponges, and they just absorb so much. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I want us to quickly get out of this conversation and then go into something else. Is bullying a coping mechanism for the bully? Okay, so Tayo, I can see you nodding your head. So I'll go for you first, and then Janet. Tayo, is it a coping mechanism?
I think, again, like with every question, there's no blanket answer. I think every child is different. However, absolutely. I do definitely agree that stress and trauma are major reasons for bullying. Everyone responds to stress differently. Some of us use positive behaviors such as meditation, exercise, talk and therapy, which relieves stress, but some people aren't able to do so. And as a result, they result to negative behaviors, bullying, violence. Some people use substance abuse, and that sort of temporarily masks the issues, but obviously makes things worse in the long term. I think Caro said something really important. I think there was a line she said about being unheard. And I think obviously the majority of bullies statistically are men, because girls and women are encouraged to speak and encouraged to talk about their feelings, whereas guys are often encouraged to, you know, man up, get on with it. And this is something that children learn, or a lot of young boys learn, to sort of, you know, man up, get on with it, don't complain about it. So this in turn leads to them sort of going into a shell. And when you come out of your shell, there's actually no way to know how they're going to respond. So yeah, I do think in some instances when it's not learned behavior, I think bullying can be a coping mechanism for bullies. I think statistically also, people who have been bullied in the past will bully as well. So yeah, no, I think definitely it can be a coping mechanism. But again, obviously I'd be careful to sort of use that as a blanket answer for every sort of reason why people bully.
Janet, what do you think? Sorry, Kyle, before you go, let's hear from Janet. Janet, what do you think? Do you think it's a coping mechanism? I mean, for the ones who bully.
Okay, I agree with him. It could be, it may also not be. But there's when not controlled, you probably, or when there's no interference on time, you probably find out that a bully, someone who's been bullied, can become a bully, right? And growing up, I went to school, it was believed that succumb to bullying, because when you become a senior, you will also bully. So I see it happening in our secondary schools. I like talking about real situations, not things I hear. You know, I've handled a case of a child who had been bullied and grew up to be a bully. So she asked some junior student when she came into school to kneel down in the gutter, and the girl knelt down in that gutter overnight. And I asked myself, I asked the system, why would you allow this? I remember vividly, I don't want to mention school. The school said it's a normal thing. That's a way of teaching them to respect their opinions. And I'm of the opinion.
Wow.
It's happening. Let's not forget. We even know the schools. You understand that you have to respect seniority. And I'm like, this child you're asking to respect seniority is a child. The outcome of this thing may not turn out good. You understand? These children need to be directed. How do you ask a child to punish a child? Will the child know his limits? You understand? And well, eventually, I fought it and insisted that child should be taken out of that school. If not, I was going to expose the school. Now, why am I this particular about this aspect? Because when the child is bullied, after a while, if you don't get anyone to intervene, the child begins to think it's normal. They tell you it's normal. It's in the system. Children can become timid. I became a warrior. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I became a warrior. You bully me, I will fight you. I will fight you till the school authority hears. You understand? And so I sincerely, I still come back to parents. You don't want to know how many children have gotten out of this. I come back to parents. Study your children. You will know when something is wrong. Teach your child not to be a bully. Teach your child not to be bullied. I tell my children, somebody is bullying you, scream till the school hears. If they don't hear, I will hear. Do you understand? And I'm not going to make trouble in the school, but I'm going to ensure that that child is taken care of. Because I'm talking on both sides now. That child is taken care of so that other children don't keep suffering and we're just keeping quiet. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question, but I think that both the bully and the bullied need help. And we must ensure that we listen to both of them and correct them. Thank you.
Sorry everyone, I think our moderator is having internet issues. She'll be back on shortly.
Thanks. Thank you. I think in the meantime, I think there's a question in the comment, which I don't actually have an answer to. I think the question was, how would you describe two kids who practically grew up together in almost the same setting, church, school environment, and it's beginning to look like one is picking on the other? These are children who are meant to be friends. I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't know if anyone else on the panel can sort of jump in.
Okay, I can try to respond to that. So like we've said before, children would react to different things because they are not the same. So you can't have two children in the same system affecting both of them, and one child is reacting more to it negatively because of the makeup, because of the temperament, and the other child is not. So children are not exactly the same, and they will not react to things exactly the same way. However, once it's been noticed that a child is beginning to pick on another child, I think the first thing to find out is why. What is the child responding to? like we've said before, children can respond to different things in different ways. Okay, maybe for example, a child needs attention, is not getting the attention. It can begin to react to that in a negative way. So why is the child picking on another child? What is happening in that space? Is there someone mirroring a particular behavior that child is speaking and that child is beginning to respond to? So obviously there's something the child is reacting to. And like Carol said the other time, you know, sometimes when children are behaving in a certain way, they're trying to communicate something. So is this child trying to communicate something that we need to pay attention to find out what exactly it is, and to come to that child's rescue to see how the child can be supported. And we also know that for every behavior we see, there is an underlying factor. So what is the underlying factor for this behavior, and how must that factor be addressed so that this child, you know, can be redirected, supported, to see that there are better ways of, you know, reacting to a behavior. You don't have to be negative. You can also, you know, pick some positive behaviors, coping mechanism that would help you to cope better to what you respond in. Are there things to be taken away from that environment that are not totally positive for the child? You know, so I think we need to investigate further to find out what the child is reacting to. And the fact that the other child is not reacting to it does not mean that that thing is not present in that environment. It just means that children are different and they will respond to. You know, I can give an example. So some children are calmer. And so when they see things, instead of responding, instead of being aggressive, they can internalize what they have seen, and then they can begin to respond, maybe by withdrawal. They are not aggressive, but they are withdrawing. But that does not mean that they are not responding. But some other children who are more expressive, you know, they can begin to show, you know, they can say things that you're wondering why they're speaking like that. They can do things because of their temperament. So you just need to find out why and then see what we can do to address the situation. Thank you.
And just to add to that,
thank you so much. Sorry, my internet decided to disappear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Carol, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I just want to thank you, William. I think you covered like most of it. I just wanted to add that, you know, again, it's not always the louder child that is the one that is bullying, or the more quiet child that is the victim, because, you know, there can be verbal bullying, there can be cyber bullying, there can be, you know, there can be children who are very sneaky, that they are the ones masterminding it behind the scenes, and you just don't know what's happening. And all of these things, again, it's just, you know, paying attention and responding immediately, and, you know, empathizing, listening. You don't have, there's no textbook way. So I don't think that it's nothing that we're going to say a lot of things that you would note and say these are things that should be done, but there's no textbook way for every case. The thing I would say that is universally acceptable is that you pause and you listen, and then you decide on the action that, you know, you would take in any situation. But it's just important for children to know that they are being heard, that whatever they are going through is not, you know, you might miss some things, and it's not, you're a human being, it's not your fault. But as soon as you notice, you don't just ignore things and sweep them under the carpet because they are not convenient to be dealt with at that time, or because you can't take action at that time and you're like, I'll do it. It's because it can be detrimental, pushing off something that seems so little, as, you know, it just, somebody's always getting called names, or a child is always sitting alone for lunchtime. I mean, some people like their peace, but, you know, a child is always sitting alone. A child is not getting invited to school parties. And I know, like, so I think my examples a lot of times will be for like younger children, but, you know, not getting invited to things. The child is just basically being isolated. And that isolation, because it's not aggressive bullying, because it's not active bullying, might not seem like bullying, but it can be another child or another couple of children who have that mob mentality, that have come together to say, this person is not our friend for so and so and so and so and so reason. And another thing why I'm, you know, not quite hesitant about, you know, blanketing people into a particular box as, you know, maybe their home life or this or any particular kind of life, is that sometimes it's not just the stereotype. It might not be the stereotypical reason that we already
usual
assume
that we expect
that somebody is being bullied for. You know, it can be something that you'd be like, how have these children managed to make this thing a negative thing? And obviously the other thing that's part of culture is that bully victim, a bully becoming a victim becoming a bully. Seeing bullying as a rite of passage is just something that we should have like zero tolerance to, and we should try to correct. It's not very easy to come into a school, for example, and change the culture overnight, but you get to places. I went to an all girls secondary school in the beginning of my education, and in that school, it was a rite of passage. We all knew the day we were waiting for. We're all waiting for the handover that would happen when you enter SS2. So people would just bend down and go through whatever it was that you could go through for 5 years, so that handover day, in fact, after the handover assembly, the new people that were now in power would be shouting, and you'd be running to go and hide. That it was a thing.
Hands.
It was a thing. It was like military. And I remember that when I went into school, I could see like those big girls, and I was like, yeah, look at the people, look at these giants. They're bigger than my teachers. Of course, I'm not going to go and report this person to my teacher, because
my teacher,
this person is even
more
more scary. Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
more scary. But again, you might think the teachers they know, and their silence is your silence is endorsing that behavior. You turning your face away is allowing that behavior to be permissible. You turning your face away, you're not taking action. You're saying, you know what, there's a limit to what I can do. And of course, there's a limit to what you can do, but it's important to make your stance known. So maybe you'll be the one that students feel comfortable coming to tell about them being bullied. And also, those lines of, authority and, possibly a teacher bullying a student. If you are a person who shows that you care and you empathize, you probably be the one that students, whisper to, that this is what's happening. This is something you've not recognized because you can't be everywhere. But if you have that open door policy, if you have that kindness, if you have that attention, if you care, you don't need to act it. People will know that you care. And when things like this come up, they would know that this is the person to go to, because this person that looks out for me and looks out for others.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. I mean, as we go on, I also like us to point out certain things that we should always remember. Ensure that every child is about, even at middle hall.
Michelle, you're on mute.
Oh my God! After everything I've said, my ground.
Yeah, we could see all of the hand. We could see the hand movement, and I know you were passing a message, but it's like, why can't I hear?
Oh my God! I don't know what happened to me. I'm sorry, guys. So I was saying that as we go on, there are certain things that we need to ensure that we remember, that all the panelists have said. Pause and listen. Pay attention. Ensure that every child is heard. And I was saying that there's something Bidemi always says in school. Every child is a human being, and every child knows exactly what it is that they want. So ensure that especially when they get to certain ages, 4, 5, 6, they can clearly say to you what it is that they want. They can clearly explain it to you. So let's not assume that you don't know what you're saying, you don't know what you want. No, how can you say that child is bullying you? Do you even know what bullying means? They know and they understand and they see what's going on. So please, let's ensure that as teachers, as parents, we are constantly listening. Okay, as we go on, let's talk about this. Are there differences between how boys and girls are bullied? So I'm a boy. There's a certain way that I'll be bullied, and I'm a girl. There's a certain way that I'll be bullied. In fact, let's remember all these high school movies that we used to watch. High school musicals we used to watch. There's this fine girl in school, who is like the rich one, who's the rich kid, and then there are these other girls who just follow her around, and they don't beat them, but there's something called emotional abuse. Yes, mean. I think that's the word, mean girls. So they bully these other girls. They throw their books away. They just do certain things to them. And then for the guys in the same, high school movies that we used to watch, what the boys do, they beat up the boy, they hit him on the wall, on the cupboard or something. So is there a difference between how girls are bullied and how boys are bullied? Tayo, first, I'll start with you.
I don't think, I think on a surface level, yeah, I think, but I think I mean, I've never really experienced from the girls' point of view, so I think the girls will be able to give a better assessment. But I think on a surface level, it's different in the sense that the guys are more physical and the girls are more verbal. But I think that there's definitely an overlap whereby there are times where, you know, the girls can be more physical and the guys can be just as verbal. I think the guys will predominantly be more physical just based on how guys are. But I think obviously there's definitely violence or sort of physical altercations involved when girls are involved. But I think for the most part, I think the difference would be girls use their words a lot harsher than guys, because guys are not very good at using words, which is why they result in violence. And I think women are far more able to be articulate with their wording, and they know how to, like, you know, push your buttons with words. But yeah, I mean, women will also be violent in periods as well. So yeah, I think that's how I answer the question.
So in fact, I think that I want everybody to answer this question. So Janet, what do you think? Is there a difference?
Well, there used to be, but I think even girls have become violent. I'm sure you've seen recent videos of girls beating a girl up to death, up to the point where she dies, and videoing, and, you know, putting it online there for people to see. That means, they were actually enjoying it, you know. Well, I'm in my 50s. Growing up, the violent part was more with the boys group. But now what I see, because I have the opportunity of working with both rural children and urban children, and I see that in the area of the rural children, you have a lot of bullying, you know, among girls becoming violent, actually hitting each other and showing that the person gets maybe to the point of almost unconsciousness. You understand? So I think it has changed. With boys, it used to be more physical, but I think now it's an all-round thing. The girls can do what the boys do, and the boys can do what the girls do. I want to add that I don't know if you've noticed, but boys bully girls. Boys bully girls also, and girls bully boys. You understand?
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
Yes, so I think we should take note of that. I've seen a girl talk to a boy, and the boy was in tears, and the girl gathered around him. A boy, can you imagine that? So I think it's all the way now. Thank you.
I can.
Thank you, Janet. Bidemi, yes.
Yes, I can add that. Yeah,
I was about to call you.
It's becoming difficult to generalize, but when you look at it on the surface level, okay, it's possible that girls want to be more subtle. You know, they want to use their social space, you know, and their words more than being aggressive when compared to boys. But now, you know, you can have it either way. So what you want to do is just to look out, whether it's a girl, whether it's a boy, what patterns are you observing that are not supposed to be, and what are you going to do about it? But it's possible that, you know, sometimes girls would just, you know, they might exclude somebody from a group, you know, they're not inviting somebody, they're not playing with someone. They are very, very, you know, big with words and all of that compared to boys, but it's not cast in stone.
Yes, and I do think that as kids are getting older, I think that as kids are getting older, they're beginning to recognize the importance of social standing, of social capital, of, you know, being popular, of just, so now where there are aggressive people that are still involved in physical bullying, people now wield that power that they have to exclude people from groups, to exclude them from opportunities, to exclude them from social gatherings, to, you know, start a hate campaign online. You know, that's like another reason why it's so important to be aware of as kids are getting older, of like making sure that they use the internet responsibly, because they can start like a hate campaign, which is bullying, but because it's not what we are generally looking out for, you might only be looking out for who is fighting, who is shouting at people, who is behaving disruptively in class, when most of the things are happening outside the class on the cyber space. So yes, there are differences that used to exist, and like everybody has said, those lines are blurring. But again, you know, boys tend to bully, you know, boys and girls. Girls tend to mostly bully girls, but they would, you know, also bully, would I say, younger boys. And that's is something that happens. I think, you know, another thing is, I think it was Janet that mentioned in the beginning about kind of avoidance, preparing children for bullying, or preparing them to be anti-bullying, or preparing them for the signs of bullying. Is also preparing them not to be bullies, preparing them to find ways to socially adjust, ways to adjust emotionally, emotional intelligence, communicating their needs, finding ways to resolve issues, and also being like not escalating issues, because sometimes bullying can start after something has been reported to you in class, and then the way you handle it in class now makes a child to feel that they were put down, and then they begin to, you know, bully this other child. I'm not taking responsibility from the bully. I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, the way that issues are handled in a way that does not escalate certain issues, that does not push certain issues, or does not bring out certain tendencies in children, is something to also look at. But we can't put it as a gender thing anymore. I think the lines are blurred. And again, we should also kind of avoid those gender stereotypes, because it makes us sometimes look at girls as always being meek, and boys to be the aggressor, encouraging boys to speak up, you know, encouraging boys to speak up, and encouraging them to, you know, show, you know, like, it's like how we're talking about it, and, you know, say a girl was shouting at a boy. Can you imagine? You know, yes, because girls are capable just as boys, and those behaviors are behaviors that we need to, you know, look out for. We need to make girls and boys already know that it's not one behavior that is gendered. If not, people will take advantage of those stereotypes that we already have. You know, people will take advantage of the fact that they are the minority, and that they will be seen as the victims, whereas in some situations they are the aggressors. So again, as we've said to everything today, it's not one size fits all, and you just need to apply that wisdom and know what you're looking out for.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our panelists. So I mean, I think it's important that we understand that whether male or female, if a boy comes to me and says, I was bullied by the girl, it's not the time to laugh and say, oh, that's impossible. It's very possible. So we need to take that child seriously. And I know that we all expect that a boy bullied the girl, absolutely, that's true. But there are circumstances, certain issues and situations where the girl is the one actually bullying the boy, and we need to believe this child, and we need to ensure, like in the words of Bidemi, investigate, right, and look out for it. In fact, this is why Adediga says, absolutely, bullying is not gender bias. if it was in the past, it's no longer gender bias, right? So, all right. I have this very interesting question, and I'm sure, I don't know, you might be like, how can children bully their teachers? Okay, Tayo, I like that. Tayo is like, that's the reaction I saw, like, I never thought about that. Think about it, Tayo. Okay, so Tayo, let me leave you now. I saw you look up, like, thinking about it, and I saw Bidemi smile. So Bidemi looks like you're the first person on the list. Can teachers be bullied by the children or by the students?
Absolutely. Remember what we have said is you're looking for a behavior pattern that is targeted. Okay, so if this behavior is intentional, if it is repeated, and if it is targeted at a teacher, it is possible for children to bully their teachers. But then you want to look at the age of children we're looking at. Do you understand? So when you're talking about college children, definitely, because sometimes they want to get back. Sometimes maybe a teacher has not been patient, a teacher has not been kind, and they can't plan to get back at that teacher. So yes, they can actually bully depending on what they are doing in that space. But then when you're looking at younger children, sometimes younger children can be innocent. So you might not necessarily see it at the younger, with the younger children. Yes, but with the children, older children, especially even in the cyberspace, you see, children talk about their teachers, they mimic them, they make fun of them, they do different things, they can lock them up, okay, this is the particular time that the teacher is going to go into the classroom. You can lock him up, you can keep the key. So yes, children can actually bully their teachers, but then you need to look at the age of children, where they are mostly going to be college children and not necessarily younger children. But then, like we're saying, we're not going to close our eyes and say it can never happen. It is not possible. So it's possible that children can actually bully their teachers, especially if that behavior is repeated, if it is targeted. And yes, it's possible for children to bully their teachers.
Sorry, can I just add something to what you've said? Yes, it happens that when you're going to call me, I call myself ahead of time. But like, can I just say that, somebody said something about, I think somebody just in the comments, it just popped up and somebody said, teachers, bullying teachers. I think, again, it's a cultural thing, and another thing that happens is that head mentality. It's very easy for children some children are not bullies on their own, but they join the head and they begin to behave like the mob. So sometimes it might not be one child bullying a teacher, depending on the culture of the school. It can be that one child suggested it and 10 children agreed and said, we'll go and lock up this person. And again, it still goes back to the culture of permissible behavior. What are they mirroring? Where is this coming from? Is this teacher also an unpopular teacher with other teachers, that other teachers have also isolated the teacher? All of those things tend to follow a pattern. And I like that we're having these conversations now. I don't know if they were had when I was younger, where people actually cared to know whether children were being bullied, or cared enough to be like, how can I change my behavior? Or what should I be looking out for? How can I care that a child is being bullied? But like when I was younger, I don't think you would go home and say, this happened, and they'll be like, ha, your turn will soon come. You will soon become the bully. So it's still that culture of what we permit, or what we encourage, or behaviors that we reinforce, or behaviors that we try to correct, or behaviors that are punished. But yes, for sure, it can happen. But again, there's a power imbalance that already exists between teacher and students. So it's not something where every time a child talks back, it means they're bullying a teacher. I don't believe it to be so. I don't believe it to be so that, children defending themselves or speaking up for themselves is necessarily, that's bullying, no. But it can happen, but you have to just examine the facts of the case at the time.
It's not like an NCIS. Okay, Tayo, what do you think?
So I've been listening, right? I'll be honest, I'm not sure, man. I'll be honest, I am not.
I like sure. That.
I look at like I try to figure out obviously, what bullying is, right? And obviously it's you imposing or trying to intimidate someone who you perceive as vulnerable. Now, I mean, it could be just my experience. Obviously, I grew up in London, so I went to school in London, and I guess the power dynamic was massive because it's predominantly white teachers in white schools, and the black children were in the minority. But I think children are very capable of giving teachers a hard time, absolutely. But to say bullying, no, I think teachers are more likely to bully children. I think that's something that's not talked about as much. But to say a child can bully a teacher, I find that hard to wrap my head around. I think definitely, like, there are circumstances where, there's a supply teacher that comes in for a day, the whole class will give the teacher a hard time. And they'll try and get onto the teacher for sure. But to sort of say to bully, that would mean that the child is almost in control of the class, and it happens on a day-to-day basis, which then makes me question the relevance of the teacher. That's not something that I've ever seen. So I find it really hard to agree with the fact that a child can bully a teacher. I think, like I said, a child can give a teacher a hard time. And I think I've worked in schools as a learning mentor and a behavior mentor. So obviously I've been in staff rooms and I've obviously heard teachers complain about children giving them a hard time, for sure. But it's more from a point of being frustrated as opposed to being, oh, I'm not in control of this class, I'm not in control of this child. So yeah, no, I'm gonna respectfully disagree. I don't think children can bully.
I'll give you an example. An example then. So when it's funny, but like, so I it's definitely not a common thing, but I would say something that happened, you know, when things started to change when we're growing up, people started to establish like private schools where people that wanted the total opposite of what was happening, you know, where children were being bullied, where children were not being listened to, where it was very authoritative, wanted their children to experience a kind of learning that was the total opposite of that. And what that led to was like little community schools or little private schools where basically teachers could not speak up. So it's not a standard, but we have like, so, and I speak from a Nigerian point of view, where something like Janet said about how, you know, some children have domestic workers and they can say anything to their domestic workers and they behave anyhow to them and stuff like that. That was kind of replicated in certain schools. Okay. So my cousin went to a school where literally children were afraid of, like teachers were afraid of being reported because their salaries were cut and things, all these kind of things. So they fostered the total like opposite of it, because now teachers were not being listened to in these little places. But I don't think it's like widespread, because after a while, that kind of behavior also parents would see the replication of that behavior at home and be like, yeah, okay, you're not controlling my child in school, but you're not, because this is what you went for. So it's more of a Nigerian thing. What was happening in Nigeria at the time, I know that because my cousins went to a couple of schools like that. And again, it's the standards, the culture that has been created, you know, just that I would say it was a culture thing that we experienced, where children could just go and be like, I'm reporting my teacher for, I didn't submit my assignment, I got in trouble, and I'm reporting my teacher. And then the teacher gets told off for that. But it's not a standard behavior where a child that is 10 years old or 9 years old is...
I understand the context that you've put it in, and and then if that's the case, then I think I can understand that. And I guess obviously living in the UK and obviously schooling in Nigeria for like 2 years, I guess, whereas it doesn't matter how rich you are in the UK, whether you go to a private school or public school, the teacher is the teacher. I suppose in Nigeria, money talks more than authority does sometimes. So it could be the case where, you're right. You know, children from a type of background will come into the school and they will reign supreme because of, you know, the status of their parents. But I think in my experience growing up, that's definitely never been the case. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a prince or a queen. You come into the school and you're a child and you are treated as a student. You can't exert your authority over teachers based on your income or capacity to spend money. So I do understand what you're saying, though, for sure.
Thank you, Tayo. Janet.
Okay. I seem to be going back to a lot of parental views because of the experiences I have had. I'm not saying it just has to do with the... Now, in front of the children, in front of the child. I mean, I've witnessed a child. The teacher is a church rat. He's stupid. When I get to him, I'm going to slap him. How do you say that in front of your secondary school child? Do you understand? Now, this boy goes, he forms a group, and I noticed once or twice he talks to the teacher anyhow. And because the mom has approached this teacher before, in the presence of everybody in the school, belittling the teacher, the boy feels he has power over that teacher. That's the scenario I want you to look at. You understand? What do you think? Do you think that's not being bullied? Because it just goes away when it concerns the boys' matter and everybody who is the boy's friend. Do you understand? So I don't know what you tell him that. Is that bully? Is the boy bullying the teacher? Who gave him that strength? You understand? And you know, he's always... does anything wrong, he has to get up. So I think you should look at that scenario. It's not something that is common, but I see a lot of it happening with, should I say, parents who have a little pocket loaded. So this baby power to think that he can actually bully his teachers. And it's gone on and on. The boy has almost become a boy that most teachers just avoid because they don't want any trouble for themselves. And don't forget.
Okay.
Let me just add this, sorry. Don't forget, the teacher is a human being. We all have how we grew up. There are some of us that when you talk to us anyhow, we become timid. You understand? So I think we should put that in mind. Thank you.
Michelle, can I also ask this question? So how then do you describe, the behavior of a child that constantly frustrates his teacher?
Okay, so let me.
Michelle, are you on?
Seeing as I'm not on, yes, I am. I was saying that since I'm not on the panel, great. I don't need to answer the question. I'll leave it to the experts. Carol, do you want to talk about that? Okay, so there are two questions.
I think Tayo
now.
was going to say something. Okay,
there are two questions. Okay, sorry. So there are two questions now. So Janice was saying that a child, a group of children who constantly try to frustrate their teacher, is that bullying? And then I think that's also related to what Bidemi also asked, right? So trying to frustrate the teacher, ensure that the teacher is uncomfortable in class. Of course, you're not physically abusing the teacher, but by your words, by your actions. Would you call that? What would you call, if it's not bullying, then what's that?
It could be bullying, but I think it's disruptive behavior. So I don't think that every disruptive behavior needs to be called bullying, and it doesn't need to be bullying for it to be a grave thing, or for it to be wrong, or for it to be unacceptable. It can be disruptive behavior, and disruptive behavior can be for various reasons and can take like different ways of trying to correct that behavior. But it's disruptive, and it should be handled as such. Again, how we talked about how bullying is a pattern of behavior and all of that. There are different behaviors that and us not calling it bullying does not mean that it is not bad. It just means
bad
that
behavior.
It's bad behavior. And it's still unacceptable, and the rules should apply. And what kind of how are we intervening early in disruptive behaviors? Because when you permit disruptive behavior, it continues and it can grow into bullying, and it can grow into something else, and it can make other kids become disruptive as well, which also affects their learning, which also affects their development, which also affects everybody else's experience of the class. And that's why, we talk about 10 kids having the same experience, and how come this one and this one and this one are behaving differently? Because everybody's behavior is can bring a chemical reaction, or a reaction that's totally different. So again, children being disruptive, they don't need to hit somebody first. They don't need to, it can be pranks, which sometimes are done in good faith. But when you keep doing it, when it takes 15 minutes to get the class to stop laughing at this prank or at this joke that you've told, then you need to curb that behavior and be like, yeah, I know that you want to be a comedian when you grow up, or, maybe during break time, you organize your comedy shows, So there are ways to look at it, and it's obviously again not one size fits all, but it's still just recognizing those behaviors that are disruptive, that can affect other kids' experience of the class, that can affect other kids' experience of school, that can affect their learning. So they might not be bullied or being bullied, but they've come to school to learn, and somebody is being disruptive, and this disruption is making another person be disruptive, and this one is making people think that they have to be disruptive to be heard or to be listened to. So all of these behaviors tend to add up.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we're saying now, that there is bullying, absolutely, and then we have something called disruptive behavior, bad behavior, right? And so because it's bad doesn't mean it's bullying. It also doesn't mean that it's right. We should also try to intervene as much as we can. So we need to understand that there are certain behaviors that are bad in themselves, right? In my mind, I'm saying, Bidemi, do you agree? Because I know you asked that question. Do you agree?
To an extent, yes, because you know that children would not always be saints, so they could get into some pranks. Like I can see what someone posted in the chat room right now. So the children, being aware of their teacher's height, would deliberately put the duster far away where he would not be able to reach. So yes.
Horrible behavior, horrible behavior.
Yes. So I do agree on that. If you have a school structure where they're big on behavior, definitely those behaviors will be picked and they will be addressed appropriately. And when they are done, it would return sanity into the classroom. But I'm also thinking that I know that sometimes, especially in a social setting, it's possible for children, especially using the cyberspace, to do things that could affect their teachers emotionally, affect their self-esteem. And if they do that, I would term that as bullying. I wouldn't think it's a disruptive behavior because someone is being affected. And from our definition, we'll say that there's a target and someone has been affected negatively. So if that is, it's not just any prank, it's getting to the teacher, it's not helping the teacher to be able to function effectively. If that is happening, then I would term that as bullying. So it's possible. So what we just need to do is to keep getting our processes right to know what we're dealing with. Are we dealing with a disruptive behavior? If yes, what do we do? And if we feel that this is bullying, how do we? Because for bullying, it just goes beyond that one behavior. You're beginning to think about how are the children thinking? Why are they thinking in this particular way? So you're not just looking at the outcome, you're looking at the why. And you want to be able to address the why. You want to be able to get the children to think in the right way so that their choices, their decisions are right. So yes, I do agree with what Tayo and Carol had said.
Can I just add that I think undermining can also be in some way sort of bullying. So because I just seen the question in the thing about, constantly undermining the teacher by having to put it at the top there, especially if that's something that the teacher feels, conscious about, or even if they're not conscious about it, they've now brought it to the forefront and it can be again, corrected. But I do think that sometimes when you undermine authority, you are trying to it's not really reverse, because sometimes you just don't have the power is already imbalanced. When it's a teacher, the teacher should have more power, but we use the Nigerian factor where often there's imbalance that that person doesn't have that authority already, and then you do this thing to further tilt that scale. So I think undermining in some way could be seen as personally being out for this person, and when you have your mob behind you, then it becomes a case where there's imbalance in the numbers, in the voices being heard, in the actions, and this teacher sometimes does not have the authority to do anything back or to protect themselves without escalating the issue.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, I'm so sorry.
I can hear you, yes.
I'm so sorry. My internet just started to, embarrass me, but it won't. I will not be embarrassed. I refuse to be embarrassed by my internet. Thank you guys so much. I know that Carol is leaving very soon, very, very soon. But so I'd like to quickly ask her this question before she leaves. Carol, can you hear me? Hi, Carol, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to ask, right? Do you have any example of bullying and how? And it doesn't have to be personal, right? It can be something that you heard. And how was it solved? I think that giving examples would help give us some context, give us perspective, and it would show that there are solutions that can work. So what example do you have in the case of bullying, and how was it sorted?
Yeah, so one of the examples that comes to mind where, for me, I think this was, I would say, handled effectively, was I used to know someone whose child was, so it wasn't necessarily, she wasn't being violently bullied, but she was, being taunted, people laughing at her. And this was like a race issue. When she reported this to the school, they were, I think this is in England, so people have very interesting reaction to racism. So when she reported this to the school, they obviously did not want to be seen as racist. Whether or not they knew about the behavior beforehand, that leaves to be question. But I know that they immediately informed the parents of the bully or of the bullies. They empathized, and they tried to get all those advisors that speak to children about respecting differences, about how to treat people. But I think the reaction then was good, because one of the things that I saw in action was, somebody reacting immediately. Somebody saying, "Oh, we hear you. This is definitely bullying. This is definitely bad. And this is how we're going to handle it. And the ways in which we're going to handle it is by informing, authorities, by telling the children's parents." Because their parents hearing about it, most people, I can't say nobody, because some people like being bullies and they want their children to be bullies. But, some people are irritated by that. Some people don't want that behavior ascribed to them. So inviting, and again, I think something that was important was that they kept reassuring the parent, and they kept asking the parent, "Okay, we want to inform the parents of these children that this is what they've done. I hope that's okay." Yes, the parents are sorry. They want to meet with you to apologize in person. Are you okay with that? And they did that, and then they made their kid apologize, and then they made their kid attend some trainings, and then they spoke to the whole school about that behavior. So in the end, the parents whose child was being bullied was like, "Yeah, I don't want major punishment."
Can we see here, Janet? Sorry, can we see here, Carol? I think she went off. Carol? I think she's off. I think she's off. I can't hear her anymore. Okay, so Bidemi, can you hear me?
Yes, Michelle.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we lost Carol there. Are there examples, or is there an example for time?
Okay.
Time constraint. Is there an example that you would like to give to
Share.
us?
Yeah. So there's this story of a child.
Yes, like to share, and how bullying effectively handled.
Okay. So there was this story of a child that was constantly taunting another child about being allowed into the social space in school. So she would say to her that if you do not give me your lunch, then
okay, I think that car is still, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Michelle. Do you want me to hold on for Carol?
Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. I got thrown out, but I didn't want to end on that note, so I can just say my goodbyes.
No, you can continue. Do you want to wrap up what you were saying? I can hold on for.
Yes.
Oh, Bidemi, thank you so much.
Okay, we found you now. Okay, you can continue. You want to wrap up your thoughts?
Yes, thank you so much, Demi. So I just thought that it was important that in that situation there was, empathizing, the action was taken, that they tried to correct the behavior, that they made the child feel very heard and the parents feel very heard, and that they also informed the parents, because sometimes you want to keep things hush hush because you're ashamed of behavior. And I think, being ashamed as a teacher, you don't want it to seem like you are the one that has encouraged behavior. But it's sometimes it's okay to put things in the open, let their adults know what has happened, and let everything be discussed so that child is aware that there's authority, and that this is how authority feels about this, that there's a zero tolerance policy to this behavior, and this is what will happen. Do I want my parent to keep getting called in that I'm a bully? This is how I want to present myself. And so that's like an example of something I thought was handled well. It was my first experience it being handled like that, where it was not, you are lying, your feelings are not valid, or also, so you mean it was just like mouth insults? They didn't hit you. Why you it was nothing. The child wasn't belittled, or their experience wasn't belittled. It was recognized as something that can have adverse effect. And I mean, people will tell you, and we don't. I don't forget. I've not forgotten my bullies. I mean, I've forgotten exactly what happened, but it affected my own behavior. It affected how I wanted to be, how I did not want to be. So things that might look little are not always little. So, I think that's something that was handled well. So I will stop here. But thank you so much. I've learned a lot from listening to all of the panelists, and you've been a great host. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for joining us, for lending out your voice, for teaching us. We've learned a lot as well from you and from experience, and we hope available for us.
Thank you. No, thank you. I'm always there for Middle Hall Foundation. So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay.
You too.
Bye,
thank you.
Carol.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Carol.
Take care now.
Okay, so thank you. So Bidemi, you were saying.
Okay, so I was trying to explain that. So there was this child that was kind of, threatening another child of being part of their social space. So you can't be part of us except you give me your lunch. And so she's been collecting the child's lunch for a period of time. And so the child resolved to eating his lunch in the car. So before he would step out of the car in the morning, he would try to eat as much as possible because he knows somebody was going to collect his lunch. So the sister was very observant, and he noticed that as an unusual behavior. Why would a child want to eat his lunch in the morning before going to class? And so she observed for a day or two, and then was able to alert, the parents, and of course the school, was spoken to. And eventually, an investigation was done, questions were asked. And at the end of the day, it happened that the bully actually, does not usually come with lunch to school. So that was the need. Okay, so the need to be fed, the need to get lunch provided for, had pushed him into that space where he begins to taunt another child for lunch. But eventually, because the school already had a system for addressing such behavior, so the first thing that was done was to, investigate and listen. And it's always important, find out, even when you are not sure, ask questions. And you can ask people around, apart from the two people involved, so that you can be clear about exactly what is happening. So eventually, of course, there were consequences. Yes, the fact that you don't have a lunch does not mean you should begin to taunt another child to collect the child's lunch. So there were consequences meted out, and of course, the child was reinstated back. Public apology, and a letter was done, and all of that. And so at the end of the day, it's getting the child to be able to own that behavior, to see that, okay, this is a better way to behave. If I have a need, okay, there are ways to go about it. I could have spoken to my parents, they could have looked into it, and actually it was not even the parents. So it's the nanny not, doing what she's supposed to do, packing the boy's food as when he's supposed to go to school. So the child goes to school, a parent thinks, the child is
fine.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there's no long. The child gets to school, is hungry, and he thinks of, okay, how do I cope? How do I survive? And you begin to taunt another child to get the child lunch. So eventually, apart from resolving the issue, there's that part of the bullied. Okay, so the child has been bullied. How do you get that child to overcome that effect of what the bully has done? So of course, there will be a lot of counseling, a lot of reassurance, a lot of saying that you need to learn to speak up. And so we also need to begin to teach our children awareness. They need to know, when to speak up, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what should be escalated, when it should be escalated, and all of that. So basically, it was properly addressed, and at the end of the day, looking down the line, the behavior has not repeated itself. So basically, when you have a structure in place that addresses the behavior, it's able to redirect and put the child back on track to know what can be done.
Thank you so much, Bidemi. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like us to quickly drift a bit. We have about 16 more minutes, and I want us to keep to time. So I'd like to quickly ask Janet this question. We've understood what bullying is, and we've spoken about the bullies and those who have been bullied. What is the role of the school and the role of the parents? So this is a twin question, and I'd like Janet to quickly answer this for us in, say, 2 minutes or less than. What is the role? Because the goal for this session is, how do we curb bullying, not just in school, but even in our society, right? In our community, at home, in church, in the mosque, wherever. So what is the role of the school first, and then the role of the parents? Janet, please, in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, so I'll just take on only the role of the school, okay?
Okay, all right.
The school needs to begin to starve these bullies. When I mean starve these bullies, create roles and responsibilities for children you identify as bullies. It's something I've tried. And before you know it, they are tired of, can't find followers. Because when bullies find followers, they keep growing, and eventually you have a bunch of them. Now, I also believe that staff should move into the system. When I say move into the system, become a part of the system, become a part of the children. You understand? Play football with them. I see teachers who are so friendly with children. They play football with them, they sing with them, they're in their musical groups. You see that in some of our teenage movies that we watch. That way you can actually get to understand their language. And because you are a part of them, you have a silent mentoring voice in their midst. You understand? So you can talk to them, and being in the system helps you to know what is happening within the children. You're more a friend than a teacher per se. You understand? That way you can actually direct the children, both the ones who are bullies and the ones who are not bullies, to hear you out, and you have the opportunity of, should I say, counseling them because you're their friend, not necessarily judging them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you so much. Tayo, please quickly talk about the role of parents as regards bullying, and what we as parents can do or should do to ensure that even from the home front, we are curbing, this menace called bullying.
Okay, well, obviously, I'm not a parent myself, so I'm mindful of my opinions, but I think even just from a human being standpoint, I think if you have a child who is a bully, you should be honest with yourself, because if the shoe was on the other foot, it's not something that you would like. I think parents have a responsibility to their children's future, and essentially, like, if you allow something like that to happen, that's going to transpire into the rest of their life, for sure, whereby they feel that they can get away with anything. And on the flip side, I think obviously, and I think most parents do this anyway, is that obviously if their child is the one being bullied, they shouldn't be silent about it. They should be as loud as possible with regards to sort of cutting it out. But I think when it comes to dealing with a child who is a bully, I think parents have to be honest with themselves. And it's not necessarily about bad parenting. Sometimes children learn things from all manners of walks of life. So I think they have to be honest and be intentional about cutting it out as soon as possible. And if that means talking to the school about it, talking to the child about it, seeking alternative means for the child in terms of like therapy or stuff like that, then yeah, they should do everything possible to make sure that, you know, that it's not swept under the rug. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tayo. Bidemi, role. Okay, thank you, Tayo. Thank you so much. The QAT director, Mental Health Group, and so what is the role of the school, and how can the school, you know, help with curbing bullying?
Okay, so a school is a space where children should not only be taught how to be excellent in academics. We can teach behavior. We can create an atmosphere where children would respect each other, you know. So I feel that the role of the school is to make the school a safe environment, where children will grow in all aspects, intellectually, emotionally, socially, academically, be deliberate about teaching behavior. You know, behavior can be taught. So we should have targets. What are the expected behaviors we want to see in our school? And where are we going to be pushing the behaviors through? What have we put on our timetable that would allow us to deliberately teach behavior, that would deliberately teach the children to be self-aware? This is the way I am. So if I'm calm, if I'm quiet, it's not a problem. This way, what are the benefits? How can I take advantage of this? If I'm prim and proper, how can I take advantage of this? So basically putting a structure in place where children are taught to own their behavior, to know their decisions, create an atmosphere of friendliness, you know, kindness, you know, being deliberate at rewarding good behaviors, you know. So when you catch children doing the right thing, promote it, make it a big thing, and have a zero tolerance for bullying. Bullying is not something that when you pick, you're going to treat it like misbehavior. An ordinary misbehavior should be treated like something that is really, really big. And so it can be treated at a higher level. It's not just any offense. So at a higher level, in the sense that it's documented, parents can be invited to school. We have, you know, this meeting, a child is pledging to the kind of behavior he or she is going to be displaying henceforth. So bullying is not something to be treated mildly. We need to blow it. We need to mete out consequences where we should, and also support, give the kind of support. So support the children, letting them know that, yes, if I've done this before, I can, you know, have a reflection, a rethink, and you know, begin to choose positive behaviors. What are my triggers? How do I respond to my triggers? You know, just basically creating a supportive system where children can thrive and display positive behavior. We can also teach conflict resolution. I think it's very important, because children would always disagree. So when they disagree, how do they, you know, come to resolve their disagreement? Then we need to listen more. Do we give an opportunity for children to be heard? So sometimes in the classroom as a teacher, you want to speak and speak, but there's a time to listen. There's a time to let it out. There's a time to allow the children to speak what is bothering them. And so when you are able to listen, you know what to focus on. And then your teachers are also trained to know what to look out for. What are the triggers to bullying? How should it be addressed? Are there policies in your school that would address bullying? If bullying occurs, how should it be treated in your school? So when those structures are in place, I believe that, you know, the children will be supported, the teachers are supported, and everybody will be fine at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, this just means that everybody has to work together to ensure that we curb, you know, bullying. So at home, in school, like at home, like Tayo said, you know, being honest and understanding that my child is a bully or is being bullied, and how can I, in partnership with the school, like Bidemi and Janet have said, but as we come together to ensure that we treat this as what it is, we don't take it mildly, and we protect our children. Okay, so last words from each of us. Last words, Janet, Bidemi, and Tayo. Last words, last words. I'll start with Tayo. Tayo, last words on all that we have discussed and quick takeaway.
Last words. I think, yeah, this has been a really informative panel. And obviously, thank you, Meadow Hall, for getting me on. I really appreciate it. I think, obviously, bullying is a massive thing in Nigeria still. And I think definitely parents need to be more accountable, for sure, when they know things are happening. I think schools also as well need to be more accountable. Just going off some of the things that have happened recently, and the outcomes of some of these investigations have been quite disappointing. So I think both parents and schools need to sort of be accountable and work together. And I think Janet said it initially, bullies need to be worked with in as much as the children being bullied. I think, obviously, again, being a bully is not something that you are born with. You're not born to be a bully. It's not innate. It's something that's learned over time. So I think specific and direct work needs to be done with bullies as well, so that it becomes like a rehabilitation sort of setting, as opposed to just being a disciplinarian sort of response to bullying. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tayo. Thank you so much for those wise words. Janet, please. Last words.
Okay.
Key takeaway.
I want to end up by saying that what has happened in the last couple of months has been very sad, and I pray for those families, and that bullying becomes something that we can look back and laugh at because of the successful results that we have gotten from forums like this. And I want to end up, that the bully should be looked at and the bullied should also be looked at. I just want to end up by saying that please let us check our leadership roles in school. Let's take it seriously. That way we can check all the issues around us, and let us learn to speak freely. When you speak freely about it, it necessarily doesn't mean you're criticizing the other person. Schools should learn from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you so much. Bidemi.
Promotes positive behavior everywhere, in church, at home, at school, in mosques. We can never go wrong. When you promote positive behavior, children would embrace one another. Children would be able to engage positive emotions. And when they engage positive emotions, they are less likely to be bullies. When you promote an atmosphere of respect, you can never go wrong. So I have a respect for someone, and that person respects me. We have boundaries. We're not going to overstep our boundaries. I know how to speak to that person. I know what to do, not to hurt the other person. So when you promote such atmosphere, then bullying will not be able to survive, in our midst, and have like a structure in place that would allow children to be able to deal with their inadequacies. Because sometimes when children are not fulfilled, when they have low self-esteem, they begin to pick on behaviors that are not positive. But when you you already have a structure, then children can connect to, so they know that, okay, if I'm feeling low, what do I do? Do they know what to do? If I'm feeling unhappy, I can talk about it. I can speak to a friend. I can speak to my mom. So when they know that the problems they have solutions, then they won't be looking for the wrong solution. So let's I think that's something to end with. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We have learned a lot. We have learned promote positive behavior, be honest, pause and listen, look at the leadership roles and leadership styles, and how can we create structures and create environments that will be safe for both the student and the teacher. Thank you guys so much for this for speaking with us today. We don't take it for granted. So in the chat room, Chibuzo has just put up a link, a form that you'd like us all to fill, especially those of us who have attended today's session. would like us all to feel. The next webinar will be happening next month, and we'll let you all know about it. Thank you, Tayo Olasoye, for joining us today. Thank you, Janet Agba, for joining us. Thank you, Bidemi Oyedepo, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. It's 1:58. We're excited. We kept the time, so that you guys can join our next session. Thank you all so much, and have an amazing weekend ahead.
What gives you the right to judge anyone based on how they look or sound? One's person and appearance does not elect to be a subject of your projections. In fact, it holds multiple objections to the way you choose to speak of them. Why are you so quiet? They ask. Because on the playground, some of us never really did fit in. We were judged by our height or the colour of our skin. We were left out of circles, picked last for games, and people were unkind and they called us names. Why are you so loud? They ask. Because this time we want to be seen. We want to have a voice over the people who speak mean. But our physical appearance speak even louder than needed. And sometimes the bullying starts before we get to stand up for ourselves. Why are you so friendly? They ask. Because we internalize things and we think maybe we're the problem. Maybe we're the ones who were weird. So we try to hide our flaws and imperfections like acne by a beard. For it is feared that we will never belong. And the bullies of the world, they make sure that we know the lyrics to that song. Some of us know the pain of fighting daily, of warding off the bad vibes, but not being allowed to take it to heart because it's just not that deep. We're supposed to take the hurtful comments by the chin, even though they make us weep. But we can't cry in public because that makes us seem weak. And more than that, we can't retaliate, so we simply retreat. There's no reason for kindness not to dictate the words that we use, for it not to lead the words that we say and the actions we choose. For the random acts of kindness, they really go a long way. They can heal a hurting heart or fix a broken day. So be kind, speak kindly, and be a hero in your own way.